telling you, it was all over the international media that we had the United States had recovered every job lost since Obama was elected. There wasn't any pre-recession 2007 stuff about it. That's why I'm sitting there. I can't believe this. Anyway, greetings, folks. The show happened to begin where I'm in the middle of expressing my incredulity over things. Bergdahl, Schmergdahl, we'll get to that. Great to be back, by the way, folks. As always, telephone number 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address, lrushmo@eivnet.com. Catherine and I were out of the country, and I'm telling you, it was late in the week, and I did something that I rarely do while on vacation. I literally didn't start paying attention to any news. I couldn't avoid it the first couple of days were gone. And I'll be honest with you. I leave here. I can't believe this, but it's every time I leave here, man, do things blow up. It is just incredible. Carney quits. This Bergdahl thing happened. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. Well, it was striking to me, and I'll tell you the Bergdahl thing. Let me get this out of the way real fast. I'm trying to compress 4 days of stuff here to 10 minutes, and that's not going to work. So let me just back off here a second, because you see, folks, I know that while you may have been keeping up with all the news, and you may think you know everything that happened, you still are waiting for what I think about it, and I'm trying to satisfy what I know is a burning desire that all of you have for that, and I'm trying to cram it all in here because I know each of you probably have different interests. Like I've been saying, it may take all 3 hours today to get to your favorite story and my take on it. But it was mind-boggling. Two things hit me. A, really, coincidence or not, I leave here and things blow up. And then when all of this stuff did hit, I'm going to be very selfish and admit to you, I asked Catherine, I turned to Catherine, I said, how long is it going to be, if ever, before people finally go back to 2009, January 16th, when I said, I hope Obama fails? How long is it going to take for people to finally own up and admit what they knew all along? That is what I meant when I said that. How many of them are going to pipe up and say, we should have listened? And I know it's a pipe dream. That kind of thing is never going to happen. But the question comes down to, and people are asking this, are we looking at just sheer incompetence and ignorance on the part of the regime, of the president? Or are we looking at something worse? But the thing about Bergdahl, I don't know if, again, I don't know what you might have heard about this. But this Bergdahl thing, I don't think it's about him. Family, a lot of odd stuff happened here. But what, at the end of the day, happened? Obama replenished the enemy. I don't care if it's Bergdahl, Schmergdahl, or Smorgasbord that we traded. It's a 5-to-1 deal, and we've sent 5 enemy combatants, terrorists, back to the battlefield. All for the express purpose of what? And I'm reading all this stuff that the regime was totally blindsided by the reaction, that they thought they were going to be feted. They thought they were going to be heralded. They thought they were going to get all kinds of praise. And they were just stunned when the American people didn't see it this way. That's why the question, is this just incompetence or ignorance, or is it worse? What it is closing GITMO. I think what we're looking at is somebody who has already expressed a lack of concern for the Constitution, a lack of concern for the separation of powers. We're looking at somebody who now is aware, the president, that he has 2.5 years and it's time to get it all done. It's time to get as much done that he set out to do in 2009. It's time to get it done. However, he can get it done. Closing Guantanamo is one of those things, but at the root of it is making sure that this country gets its comeuppance. So none of this surprises me. None of it particularly, well, I can't say it doesn't agitate me or outrage me or make me mad, but when it doesn't surprise you, then there is a limiting factor on how angry it can make you. The frustration, I'm just going to be point blank here, the frustration is that so many other people seem surprised by what's happening. You name it. In fact, it's funny. I have two things to share with you here. One, an email from a friend. Welcome home. A boring week. VA scandal already solved by bipartisan committee. More money to the agency. Prisoner exchange. No big deal. He's going to let him loose at some point anyway. Why not now? Still have a Marine in prison in Mexico. Many suggestions on an exchange program. You'll see them as you catch up. Stock market setting highs when we finally got out to play golf. That's one friend's assessment of last week. Another friend sent me 10 pages of what went on the last 2 weeks. A summary of virtually every news story. And every one of these news stories is a story that would serve to irritate and agitate many of you and many of us. And it's just fascinating to me to study the different takes, the different reactions that people have to what all's going on. One of the things I was talking about here when the program began, when we were in Europe, I will not divulge where, it's irrelevant, was not an English-speaking, well, not native English-speaking country, but they did speak English. And toward the end of the week, when I started paying attention to sort of get myself back in a frame of mind for today, there was a news story, a series of them I really couldn't believe, and the crux of it was that every job lost since Obama had been elected has been replaced and recovered. And I looked at that and I was just in stunned disbelief. And I said, well, I haven't seen the jobs report that came out Friday. This is international news. I even took the time to comment on it. It turns out, by the way, that was the way it was reported internationally. It's not true, obviously. The pre-recession level of jobs has been replaced, but it's not with high paying. There's no change. The job market's still bad. There's no end in sight to it. But the stories that I saw made it sound like there has been a full-fledged, total U.S. job recovery, which turned out not to be the case. So we had, while I was going, let's just review some of the things that are on tap. The 70th anniversary of D-Day. Remember, last year, Catherine and I went there. It was bordering on the 69th anniversary. Just before I left, the CIA station chief in charge of search and destroy the Taliban had been outed by the regime. Shinseki resigned the day I left, a day after Shinseki quits. Predicted that. Jay Carney quit. Christian Gillibrand has admitted that the Democrats knew that Obama was lying through his teeth when he was promising people they could keep their doctor, keep their plan. More and more Democrats are, oh, yeah, we knew. Everybody knew that wasn't the case. We had to go along with it. There are a lot of stories in the stack today about how Democrats are just getting more and more fed up with Obama at every turn, but they still respect and admire him. And, of course, we had the Bergdahl swap, which that again, no mystery, and it's really frustrating. We're just replenishing the enemy. That's the thing. That's the only takeaway from that is important to me. I mean, you could analyze it further and try to get a bead on who Obama is, but see, you and I already know that. So we don't need to waste any time. I'm just again, I'm surprised that there is so much surprise when any of this happens. Do you realize that the president's flooding this country with refugees now? We're not even talking about illegal immigrants. We're being flooded on purpose with refugees. Anybody think that's accidental? Anybody think that's due to incompetence? Anybody think that's due to misplaced good intentions? There is no substantive, positive reason whatsoever for any of that going on. Flooding the country's borders with illegal immigrants who are now the equivalent of refugees. They're not even people who we could say, under the guise of seeking a better life or coming here for the opportunities which exist. This is just something entirely different. The VA story. Some people say it's disappearing. It's not. There are more and more examples of absolute incompetence and horror and disaster at more and more VA centers. White House stunned by the harsh reaction to the release of Bergdahl. How about the pictures of Obama pumping iron? The security breach of Obama pumping iron at a gym in Poland. If that's pumping iron, have you seen those pictures, Mr. Snerdley? You haven't? He's playing around with 5-pound dumbbells, and they're calling it pumping iron. 5-pound little dumbbells. 5-pound, 10-pound little, doing curls with the pumping iron. They're featherweights. And of course the question, how did those pictures get taken? Who snuck in there? Who violated Secret Service security? Nobody did. They wanted those pictures out, just like of Hillary and Clinton dancing to no music on the beach. I mean, there is a flood of children illegally entering the U.S. These are refugees. They're coming here. So it's a lot to make sense of, folks. And just a brief setting of the table here. We'll come back and take a brief time out here, and I come back and get started with all the rest of it. Again, your phone calls will be mixed in. The telephone number is 800-282-2882. Don't go away, because as you obviously can conclude, there is much more. So,
be bold this Father's Day. And
so forth. That's a distraction. It was never about Bergdahl. He's the excuse. The thing that is noteworthy here, Obama has always wanted to close Guantanamo Bay. He's promised to shut down GITMO. The left is irritated at him. It's cost him some money, in fact, in donations, that GITMO is still open. To do that, to close GITMO, he's got to get rid of the remaining terrorists somehow. And he's been itching to find an excuse to do so. Some way to make it seem like it's something else besides letting these terrorists go free. So he does it in the form of a prisoner swap, but he thinks he's going to get heralded and get credited and thought of as a great guy. We're going to get back an American soldier. This man has never worn a uniform. He disdains people who do. He doesn't understand the culture. He and Susan Rice is as tone deaf now as she was down during Benghazi. These people are embarrassing. They literally are embarrassing. They have no idea about military culture, military tradition. And if indeed they were blindsided by this, and if they even care about being blindsided, that was why. But the point here is to empty Guantanamo. And when you empty Guantanamo, that everything has consequences. When you empty Guantanamo, you are replenishing the enemy in a war on terror that is still underway. These people might want you to think they vanquished al-Qaeda because they got bin Laden. They might want you to think the war on terror is over and we moved on to other things, but it isn't. It's still underway, and the Taliban reaction to this is proof positive. So Obama's wanted an excuse, some way to make it look like something else, something other than letting the terrorists run free from Guantanamo. Now, nobody in the drive-bys seems to remember that Obama tried to pull this off, this swap, back in March of 2012. And back then he even, this may be reported, if this is being redundant, I'm sorry, but he even briefed some in Congress about it. And that's the only reason we ever heard about it, because Dianne Feinstein leaked the story to Foreign Policy magazine. And there was outrage, at least from some in the conservative media, so Obama had to drop the plan. He wanted to do this 2 years ago. And now you know why he didn't notify Congress this time around. Even though he's required to do so by law, he didn't do so because, A, he loves snubbing them, and he knows they're not going to do anything about it. But he didn't want to have his plans dashed again this time. He is weaker than he was 2 years ago. Tries to do this, goes through channels, Congress shuts him down, can't have that. So just do it. And know full well that nothing is going to happen to you. Now, he has to lie about that, too. First claiming that the Taliban would kill Bergdahl if this whole thing had been leaked. And then when that was laughed at, they claimed that Bergdahl was at death's door. And that's why we had to do that. And we now know that that's not the case. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this was never about Bo Bergdahl. It was never about Bergdahl's parents. Obama wants to close Club GITMO. It's one of his biggest campaign promises. But there's something else. He also wants to negotiate with the Taliban. And by negotiate, he wants to give them power in the Afghan government. This is called appeasement. This is called citizen of the world kind of stuff. This is called the new United States, where we bring our enemies in and acknowledge them and respect them. So he wants the Taliban to have power in the Afghan government. The Taliban have refused to negotiate seriously until Obama released their top 5 lieutenants. So Obama's been chomping at the bit to let them loose ever since March of 2012, maybe even before that. Bergdahl was the convenient excuse, and that's why all of this happened. And 2 things are the takeaway. Closing Club GITMO, and by virtue of that, I cannot emphasize this too much, restocking the enemy with their frontline people. The media did not make a big deal of the jobs numbers and their portrayal when the jobs report was released on Friday. Not true if you were international, if, like I was. The news internationally was that this country had recovered every job lost since Obama was elected. Turns out that all the jobs are back if you stop at pre-recession levels. In other words, we're 7 million jobs short of where we are for a total job recovery. And that's why the drive-bys are not making a big deal out of this. But you can imagine how livid I was when I heard the international reporting on this, because I knew it couldn't be true. And yet there it was, just front and center for international public consumption. The National Journal headline, "Don't get too excited about the new jobs report. The economy hit a milestone Friday after the latest jobs report shows that the U.S. recovered all the jobs lost during the Great Recession, but people shouldn't celebrate too much just yet. Now, why not? In my experience, this kind of news would be celebratory. Recovering all the jobs lost during a recession, that would be big news. Even if they were not top drawer jobs, that would be big news. That would signal some kind of policy and some kind of economic activity that was worth citing. It would be positive. And yet here are the drive-bys saying, nah, no big deal. The drive-bys. The state-controlled media saying, nah, no big deal. Don't get excited about it. On Friday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said the U.S. economy added 217,000 jobs in May. The unemployment rate unchanged, 6.3%. The economy needed to add 113,000 jobs to pass the pre-recession peak number of jobs from January of 2008. U.S. lost 8.7 million jobs in the recession, but this overlooks the simple fact that there are more working-age people in the U.S. now than there were 6 years ago. So while on its face it looks like the U.S. regained all the jobs lost over the past 6 years, that perspective doesn't take into account the number of new people in the labor force or address the labor market gap created by those new people. That's not even the nub of it. There are close now to 93 million Americans not working. The labor force participation rate is as small as it has been since the 1970s. One of the things that nobody, when you talk about new people entering the job market and there aren't any jobs for them, the bottom line is that all of that is irrelevant since Obama was reelected. They can tout all these jobs that are created that got us back to pre-recession levels. That also happens to be pre-Obama. And that's why the drive-bys don't want to make a big deal about it. All we've done is replenish the job market where it was when Bush left office. But if you talk any more about it, then you have to get into how many more jobs have been lost since and with the recovery engineered by Obama. It's not a happy story. It's not a good story. There's nothing upbeat or positive about it. And so the focus remains on the 6.3% unemployment rate, really, really good, and nothing really excited about. A lot of people in the market. USA Today, job market recovers losses, yet appears weaker. Even with the new peak of jobs, there's a great deal of slack. There are 1.49 million construction jobs that are missing. The Urban Institute says we need 7 million jobs. We need to create 7 million to keep up with the population growth. That's the point they're making here, is that all of these high school graduates, college graduates in the last 7 years entering the job market, there aren't any jobs for them, despite replenishing ourselves up to pre-recession level. There's nothing good here is the bottom line, and that's why the drive-bys are saying don't get too excited about it, which is somewhat noteworthy in and of itself. Normally, if they had a headline like this, they'd be running with it like the European media did. But in this case, there really isn't. There's nothing positive anywhere. In the job market, there's nothing positive anywhere. There's nothing inspirational, nothing hopeful, unless you happen to be already wealthy and are heavily invested in Wall Street. Nothing's changed. We're still on the same lackadaisical malaise cycle. We're still just flittering along. College graduates, more and more, are living at home. 1 in 5 are in poverty. There's nothing good, and it's all the result of policy. It's not the Bush economy. It's not that we fought 2 wars. It's not that we didn't have to fight. It's none of these extraneous excuses offered by the regime. We are in the economic circumstances, the immigration circumstances, whatever circumstances, we're in them because of specific policies implemented by this administration. Obamacare, healthcare is a mess, the VA is a mess. And here's this from CBS St. Louis. Managers of the VA Medical Center Kansas City confirmed they kept a secret waiting list of veterans who needed care. The admission comes after Senator Roy Blunt, Republican Missouri, revealed the existence of at least 37 heart patients who were not entered into the VA's appointment system but kept in a secret file. Again, sad to say, we can trace all of this back to this administration having literally no way of relating to or understanding military culture. I mean, let's face it. The American left has looked at the American military as a problem. The American military has been the focus of evil. I mean, if you're part of the Blame America First crowd, if this country's guilty, if this country has become what it has become because it has stolen everything, and believe me, that is precisely what is taught. What is taught to young kids in this country today is that this nation's wealth is the result of theft from other nations and other peoples of the world. Now, what do you need to pull that off? You need an imperialistic military. And so if you are inclined to think this country is unjust and immoral and has become a superpower on the basis of crimes committed, such as theft, then you also have to be very upset at the people who made it possible, i.e. those who project power. That would be the military. And this administration, John Kerry throwing the medals, Vietnam. I mean, it runs throughout this party. Blame America First, blame the military. They don't appreciate the traditions. They don't understand or relate to the military culture. The reaction to Bergdahl thing proves that. I mean, I've had a number of people tell me that Obama really thought he was going to get lots of praise, tons and tons of cheers and praise for getting an American prisoner of war back. And the story is that the regime was literally, honestly blindsided by the public reaction to it. Now, if that's true, how can that be? Well, there isn't anybody in this administration aside the Joint Chiefs who've worn the uniform. There isn't anybody in this administration who has really an overawed respect for people who wear the uniform. In fact, it's just the opposite. So the VA languishes, and this kind of prisoner swap takes place, and closing GITMO is looked at as a positive for U.S. foreign policy. The only way replenishing the enemy with its combatants is considered a positive is if you believe we somehow are to blame for why they do what they do. And there's no question that this regime does indeed harbor precisely those feelings. Another brief timeout. As time rolls on, fastest 3 hours in media, Obamacare remains a mess. The CBO has as much as said, it's so bad, it's so off the rails, it's so incomprehensible, they can't even count for health care law. It's no longer possible to assess the overall fiscal impact of the law. That, again, is by design. Yeah, of course it's by design. This is the thing I've been waiting for people to wake up and realize. Look, I'm not trying to brag here. I don't have to. Like Babe Ruth said, it isn't bragging if you can do it. I knew exactly what I was saying when I said I hope he fails. I knew this kind of stuff was going to happen. I knew that there was going to be this kind of assault on this country. I knew there was going to be an effort to expand the size and the role and scope of government in everybody's life. And I know what that means also. That means less and less liberty and freedom for individuals. This was in the cards. There was no debating it. It was not arguable. Now, if you are on the Obama side of this, if you're on the Democrats, the brilliance, in quotes, of this is that every problem you create is a problem that the American people are going to demand be fixed. By who? By government. So government is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be incompetent. It's going to continue to be inefficient. It's going to continue to make messes out of everything that it does. And it's all going to happen with the American people demanding that it happen. This is what they knew. They're simply flooding the system. They are ensuring that the system, whatever it is, the VA, the welfare system, the Medicare system, the healthcare system, they're ensuring that they do not work. There are too many demands. We don't have any money. And as these things continue to fail, become more and more inefficient, i.e. not work, the American people are going to demand they be fixed. And they're not going to demand that the Koch brothers fix it. They're not going to demand that the private sector fix it. They have been dutifully told the private sector is to blame for all this. They're going to demand that the compassionate, tolerant, ever-loving government fix the problem. And so we have a snowball heading down the hill. It's growing and growing and growing, feeding off its own incompetence, evil, stupidity, whatever, was all in the cards. So the CBO's giving up trying to predict any costs. Now, under normal circumstances, this would be bad news. Oh, no. Normal circumstances, 20 years ago, the reaction would have been, all right, then we've got to tighten this down. We have got to stop spending. We have got to get this put back in order. That's not the reaction today. When the CBO says, oh, my God, it's gotten so out of control, we can't even calculate the costs. The demand is for government to do something about it. And the only way government does anything is get bigger, become more involved in things. Fiscal diagnosis only gets tougher for healthcare law. Roll Call magazine. ABC News. Obamacare error puts 2 million enrollees in jeopardy. Bottom line to this one is they can't square the information they think they've got from 2 million people who've enrolled for Obamacare. 2 million people. Honor system failed. Everything in the system failed. 2 million people. They don't know whether they've paid. They don't know who they are. They don't know anything. What's the solution? Government's got to fix it. Just reading my tech blogs. Get this. These little bloggers are all excited. Somebody put a news story out late last week that healthcare.gov is about to get fixed. And they're just thrilled beyond their ability to keep their underwear up. You can just see them dropping trow out there. They're so excited over this. You can just see it as you read the words. And they wrote, as they write about healthcare.gov is about to get finally. It's slow. It's a very, very quiet news story. But healthcare.gov has been undergoing major revisions and it's about to go back online, totally fixed. Let me grab some calls, because if I don't, folks, I go 3 hours a day without them. There's that much here and more. So we're going to start with Norm in Cleveland. Norm, thank you. Great to have you on the program. Hi.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Real quick, I got to ask you this question. It's been bugging me forever since the counterfeit commander-in-chief's been in office. Is Obama brilliant or lucky? Which is it? Well, which is it?
By that, you mean what? Do you mean he happens to become president at a time the American people have been so dumbed down they don't know anything enough to stop him?
That's part of it.
Or is he so brilliant that he's able to talk them into being so stupid?
It's a combination of both, from my perspective, because the right fights like Sonny Liston against Cassius Clay. I don't understand everything that you articulate about every day in America, and yet the people, and you call them low information voters,
right?
I mean, they're lower than, I can't say the word on the air, but my God, is he brilliant or lucky, or is it a combination of both?
Well, see, here's the thing.
We got 2 more years, Rush.
Norm, what you have to understand, I know it's frustrating. This is for me, too. What you have to understand...
I want to wake up and do assisted suicide myself.
I want to wake up... No. Norm.
Yeah.
You don't mean that. You don't mean that. I understand.
We're talking to America. Look, we're all going to die. For those of us that know, we die in alphabetical order under the Affordable Care Act. I mean, this guy could harvest body parts right now.
I know.
Look at sell them.
Norm, I get it. How in the world has this amount of destruction happened in 6 years with no pushback? How in the world does this happen? So you're asking, have the American people just been on this trajectory for total stupidity and he happened to get elected when they got there? Or did he make them stupid? Norm, no low information voter realizes he is low information. That's number one. The stupid don't know that they're stupid. They have to be told. Once again, execute assigned host duties flawlessly with zero mistakes. Great to have you here. The telephone number is 800-282-2882, and the email address lrushbo@eivnet.com. Andy McCarthy, as a good friend of mine, has a book out called Faithless Execution, and it's about the impeachment of Obama. And in fact, wasn't it said by some Democrat, I forget who, that if Obama does this again, or maybe it was some Republican who said it. Was it Lindsey Graham or something? If he does, after the Bergdahl thing, if he does this again, we're going to impeach him. We're drawing our own red lines. And Andy, in his book, makes the point that we have long ago crossed the legal threshold for impeachment. It's clear that the legal threshold has been met, but there is no political will to do it. And without that, it's a waste of time. If you don't have the political will, meaning if the Republican Party doesn't have the gonads, and if the American people are not desirous of it, then it's just whistling into the wind. It's something irrelevant. Paul Bedard, writing here at the Washington Examiner, despite anger in many quarters of the nation over the president's prisoner swap, Republicans are backing off impeachment threats because they fear that it would rally President Obama's Democrat base and kill the Republicans' chances to win the Senate. And a top Republican aide said, yep, that's accurate. The Democrats are divided on so many issues right now, there's no reason to give them a reason to rally, so there's no reason to do this. And so it isn't going to happen. But then that leads to another area. We had a caller in the last hour who basically, I think, expressed the frustrations of many of you. When did this nation get so stupid? Was the crux of his question. Has it been trending this way and nobody saw it and it just happened coincidentally to peak at the same time Obama was elected? Or has Obama sponsored the stupidity, promoted it, spread it, and is taking advantage of it? And there are others who are asking, is Obama just himself stupid? Or I think the question has been asked, is he evil? I'm not comfortable using that word because it's not going to persuade anybody. He doesn't come across as an evil guy, so using that word is not going to accomplish anything. But another way of saying it is he just incompetent? Is he really in over his head? Or is he really, really smart and conniving and manipulative and knows exactly what he's doing? And does it matter why? What is happening is happening. Does the why it is happening mitigate in any way that it's happening? Let's say Obama is stupid. Does that make this any easier to take? Not to me. If it's by design, does it make it harder to take? Only in the sense that people don't see that, if that's the case. But more and more people are starting to ask the question, including Democrats are starting to ask this question. And it's not a comfortable place for Obama supporters to be, to have to defend one of these two premises. He's either dumb, stupid, or he's really intending to do all of this. You notice the left is not happy either. They never are. No matter how much of what they want they get, they're never thrilled. They're just constantly agitated, constantly offended, constantly irritated. And if they're not, they have to act like they are in order to feel like they're normal. Because that is their normal state. So on both sides, what you end up with is an extended misery felt by a lot of people. And our last caller's question, the real fear here, Obama is a politician. He comes and goes, hopefully. But it's the people who elected the guy that really pose the problem. If indeed, and there has been an effort to dumb down the population of this country. It's undeniable. It's been a part of the policy playbook of the left. It's right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Make them dumb, make them stupid, make them dependent, and you own them. And I remember how, I can give you an example of how this manifests itself. You remember early on in Obama's first term, there was something going on in Detroit where they were passing out vouchers for free rental properties or some such thing. It was a voucher to get you into a rental property free for a period of time. And there were very few of these vouchers available. And the millions that showed up, or the tens of thousands that showed up, vastly outnumbered the number of vouchers that were going to be distributed. And a radio reporter at our affiliate in Detroit, WJR, went out and talked to the people about why they were there, and then how they thought what was being made available to them was being made available. Okay, well, where are we getting the money here for you to have a voucher to live rent free in some building here now? Well, I don't know. It's from Obama. Well, where did he get it? Well, I don't know. Obama's stash. It was clear. There was no citizenship on display. There was it was depressing. Now, had I been president, and I said this at the time, had I been president and I'd seen that, I would have been mortified, and I would have been embarrassed that I am presiding and leading a country populated by such stupid people. Obama revels in it, takes advantage of it, and exploits it. All of leftists do. All the Democrats do. They have a perpetual view of average Americans that holds them in contempt. By design, by definition, a Democrat has to think the average person is incompetent and incapable. Has to. Somebody self-reliant, self-sufficient poses a threat to your average, ordinary Democrat. So they're not at all troubled. They're not at all troubled with a constant influx of lowly educated, poor, hopeless, helpless refugees. They need a permanent underclass of dependent supporters. But to you and I, we see this as an all-out assault on the fabric and the foundation of the country. And we rightly ask ourselves, how long can the country survive with that increasing degree of detachment, ignorance, stupidity undergirding it? And then you ask, well, wait a minute, is this really anything abnormal, or has this always been the case? Has this always been the percentage of the population that's this way. And people are concluding, no, that this is something different and unique. And I think they're right. I know we've been through circumstances like this before, and no desire whatsoever, apparently, anywhere in Washington to fix any of this. Washington simply sees what is and finds ways to exploit it for its own growth and its own perpetuation, rather than roll up the sleeves and be offended or frightened or shocked or insulted or whatever by it all and demand to fix it and reverse it. And you begin to think, does anybody care whether we have a great country or not? Anybody leading it, do they care whether we have a great country or not? And the current crop of people leading it never have thought it's great. Have always believed that we've been pretenders to the superpower throne. So it's our first caller, I think, just typifies the fear and the opinions of well, I'll say many of us, because I'll throw myself in with you on this. The way I look at it, what I ask myself, okay, we elected George W. Bush twice. How did that happen? How did the same electorate, in a matter of years, lose half of its IQ? And then, being honest, you got to go back and say, well, in 2000, we really didn't win the popular vote. It was the Electoral College and the Florida aftermath. And then in 2004, you got to throw the fact in that Lurch just did not fire up a whole lot of people. And the left had not succeeded. The media by that time, by 2004, had not yet succeeded in totally poisoning everybody's attitude toward Bush. And I know Bush was no Reagan conservative, but he clearly, George W. Bush was in no way, shape, manner, or form of the same frame of mind as Obama and his minions. It seems like such a stark contrast. Seems like we should have had 3 or 4 elections between Bush before we got to Obama, if we're headed in that direction. But it just seemed to happen overnight, and I think people have been scratching their heads since 2008 about this, frankly, back after this.
Good morning, Mr. Limbaugh, or is it good afternoon in your neck of the woods?
That's exactly right, sir. Thank you for calling.
This prisoner exchange thing, the saddest thing about war is that men die for their country. And when you accede to ransom demands, you're just making a super slap in the face of every person who's died for this country. And to me, it's intolerable. I don't understand why people aren't discussing the legal giving aid and comfort to the enemy. You know, that is treason, and George Washington literally hung people for such a thing. I don't get it.
Well, people are discussing it, but what do you want who to do?
What do I want who to do?
Yeah, or who do you want to do what?
I would like to see the people of this country and the Republican leadership show a backbone, and impeachment would be letting Obama off easy. And even if there's no political will, the right thing to do is the right thing to do, not because you win or lose, but because it is the right thing to do. And impeaching him is the right thing to do.
Well, I can tell you right now that the Republicans are not going to do it. The Republicans have got themselves convinced that they're going to win the Senate right now. They're going to hold the House. They've convinced themselves, hell, even Nate Silver says they're going to win the Senate. It's tight, but they think they're going to win the Senate. They are literally paranoid of doing anything that they think might reassemble and reinvigorate the Obama base. To them, it's about winning, and it's about themselves getting control of the purse strings and reinserting themselves in power. Now, there's a story by Ron Fournier, who has really, in recent weeks, I don't know what the term is. I was going to say dumping on Obama, but I guess it's as close to anything. But his piece today is giving up on Obama. I've had enough. When Democrats quit on Obama, and it's not about Fournier, it's another Democrat talking to him, who said that he's just had it. This Bergdahl swipe, that's just the last straw, but not because of the swipe or the swap itself. The tipping point for this person was how the White House mishandled its obligation to communicate effectively and honestly to Congress and the public. And more than that, Obama's team had failed once again to acknowledge its mistakes, preferring to cast blame and seek cover behind talking points and the parents. So, even though there is a credible bit of evidence that more and more... But the Fournier piece, one thing needs to be pointed out. Even the Democrats in this piece who say that they have, this is a tipping point. They finally, they're moving away from Obama, but they still go to great pains to say they like and respect him. And so you have to temper all this. So I think you have to be, it's very seductive to see a story that says Democrats abandoning Obama. They're not. They're not going to abandon Obama, especially if it means Republicans winning anything. There's about as fat a chance of that happening as the media converting and becoming supporters of conservatives and Republicans. That isn't going to happen either. The Democrats are not going to abandon Obama. Why are they upset that he lied? To them, he lies all the time. Because in this case, the press didn't provide any cover. So the lie is exposed. They have to react to it. Nobody's out there saying, oh, Obama didn't lie. Oh, Obama didn't do anything wrong. So they have to go on record as disapproving of this. If anything, it is indicative of where the Democrats still think the country's bread and butter is. And it's not extreme liberalism. I mean, if you've got a Democrat who is even with an election coming up, you've got an elected Democrat who thinks there are points to be gained or ground to be gained by distancing himself from Obama, what are you saying? You're saying this country's not gone yet. It's not. I still maintain we're being governed or ruled, if you will, by a really small minority. And there's just little bits of evidence here and there that prove it. Here's Mike in Colorado Springs. You're next. Glad you waited, sir. Welcome to the program. Hi.
Yes, thank you, Rush. It's an honor and a privilege to talk with you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I would like to point out one more of about 1 billion examples of hypocrisy coming out of the administration. If they're encouraging these people to come across the border illegally or undocumentedly, there's a couple of things a couple of points about this. Number one, the amount of risk that people are taking to do so. I mean, they're dealing with coyotes and human traffickers.
Right.
They're probably dealing with drug cartels. These are not the bright, upstanding people that work in the embassy. And second of all, if these countries like Mexico or others with dismal records on human rights, it's really more or less encouraging them to continue their policies instead of having people point out to them that they're doing something wrong.
Who's doing something wrong?
Well, if you have an administration that says, "Hey, you're violating human rights in your country," there's a force behind that. The United States can take action against that, whether it's sanctions or just using the bullet pulpit to word whip them into trying to make a difference, encouraging people within their own country to say, "Hey, you should be living at a better standard."
You think? Wait a minute. I want to sound it. You think the Obama administration is going to do that?
Oh no, they wouldn't. But I'm saying they can't do it now. That's total hypocrisy. Them being unable to bring any point.
Well, hypocrisy never stopped them from doing anything, but they're not going to do it because they don't think we've got the moral authority to tell anybody else about human rights because we violate them so much.
Honor to be on your program and to speak with you. I've listened to your program for a very long time. My kids are reading your books, and I just stand in awe of everything you've done and the importance of the role you've played for our country. So,
well, here I'm thinking I'm not doing nearly a good enough show today for you people, and you call and say that, so I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Something you said in the last segment really resonated with me, and for all the times I've tried to call before, I've always gotten a busy signal, but I stuck with it and I got through.
Well, it must be that you were meant to get through. It must be that what you're going to say was meant to be said.
Okay. Well, I got a couple things I'd like to say. I'm not sure either one of them is particularly profound, but with regard to Obama succeeding Bush and how it seems like such a reaction by the electorate and how it seemed like there should have been a number of things intervening between the two, I look at it differently. I think that Obama was only possible because of Bush, and he was a reaction to Bush. And I mean, Obama used Bush's actions to invalidate Hillary's run in 2008. And I think as strong as the reaction was to get for Obama to get in there, that would not have been possible, but for the feeling among so many people that Bush's presidency had been such a failure. And I voted for Bush twice without regret, even as I sit here now. But, you know, I do think that...
need to ask you a question.
Sure.
Not a cop-out question. Not a cop-out question. I'm just... All during the 8 years of Bush, and let's focus the second term of Bush. All the while that the media is trying to destroy Bush, lying about the economy, trying to tell people we're in a recession when we're not, doing the body counts coming out of Iraq. Do you realize, and I made the point then, in a training mission for D-Day, we lost more airmen than the total number of soldiers lost in Iraq during the total number of years we were there. In one training mission. And I kept making this point, and yet it didn't resonate. My point is that I voted for Bush twice. I did not think that his presidency was failed, not in the way the media was portraying it. I mean, there were things I wish he would have done differently that have been more conservative and so forth. But the idea, was Bush's presidency a failed presidency, or did the media succeed in defining it as such, helped by Bush, not fighting back, not returning fire, not correcting any of the things that were being said about him? I mean, it's a moot point now, but in trying to assess public opinion about it, I think it's relevant.
No, I think it's totally fair to say, and I'd go one further and say that if, you know, the media treated Obama the same way they treated Bush, Obama would likely have been run out of town by now. I mean, it's just...
Well, look, I don't want to go there because that's not going to happen. What I'm bouncing off, no, I'm taking very seriously what you said. I'm bouncing off the fact that you said Bush made Obama possible. Meaning, Bush had to screw up so badly that Obama was able to act like a messiah and a magic elixir who was going to fix everything. And if indeed the American people... See, I guess what you're saying is, and maybe I've missed this, were the American people the last 3 years of Bush as depressed, as disappointed, as angry as they are now? Or more so?
I think there was more of a shock factor back then, Rush, because starting with the failure of Lehman Brothers in 2008, and as it went right through up to Election Day, I mean, McCain was in pretty good shape, as I recall, right up until about Labor Day and right up until about the failure of Lehman Brothers. And you can talk about, you know, the media reaction to Sarah Palin and what have you, but, I mean, there was I mean, we were experiencing, many days of multi-100-point drops in the Dow.
Yeah, but look,
really see that. I mean, there had really been a foundation-shaking thing going on with the economy in the last few months of Bush's presidency, and I think that helped Obama. But fundamentally, Obama was basically the same candidate as Kerry. I mean, they were both very liberal senators, never held a job, never sponsored important legislation. They were just guys who, would get up and give a speech. But obviously Obama had a degree of charisma and perhaps other qualities that Kerry did not, and I think his timing was a lot better.
Well, here's another way of assessing this, and it's a more optimistic, at least in part, way of doing so. Listen, I don't think we can talk about Obama and winning without talking about race either. But I'm really struck now. I've got to go back and rethink myself and come up with a way of expressing this, because I know what they were trying to do to Bush. I know what the media was trying to do. I know that, I'm an objective person. And I'm very honest with myself, especially, and I saw exactly what was happening with the so-called financial crisis. I thought there was a whole bunch of things were being manipulated to make this country look like it was in much worse shape than it was. And I was just a little stunned that so many people bought it, but they did. But I don't know how in the world you can look at for just one thing. Let's take a look at jobs now compared to jobs in 2006 or 2007. That was panacea. That was utopia then compared to now. We had 4.7% we had full employment. We had nobody living at home with their parents. None of what's happening today was happening at the tail end of Bush. None of it was. And yet people think that is what caused this. And I know they still do. It burns me. But here's my reaction to you. See, I made the point moments ago that I couldn't believe that the same country that elected Bush twice has elected people to do what they're doing now. But the fact of the matter is that it was not the same electorate. The same electorate was not choosing between Bush and Gore or Bush and Kerry in 2008. The electorate in 2008 was choosing between McCain and Obama. And then in 2012, the electorate chose between Romney and Obama. Now, the lesson is, the more the Republican Party waters down its principles and refuses to expose the defects and the scandals and the problems and the truth of their opponents, the more they're going to lose. The more Northeastern liberals they continue to nominate, they're going to lose. The more they try to be like Democrats or Democrat light, the more they go along with what supposedly the Democrats define as the direction of the country, the more they're going to lose. Bush, and I made this point, lost the popular vote in 2000. He won the presidency because of the Electoral College. That should have been a lesson. That should have been a red flag for the Republicans back in 2000. Now, you're right. He beat Kerry, who was a terrible candidate. But you said that Kerry and Obama were almost identical. They had neither accomplished anything. Kerry in the Senate longer than Obama, but really neither of them had done anything, sponsored no significant legislation. Kerry was known for throwing medals over the White House fence, and Obama was known for making a speech in 2004. But the public, I think in 2004 didn't want to change leaders during a war. So Kerry, even though he and his swiftboat buddies reconquered Boston Harbor, the American people didn't see them as credible military leaders. Bush was a solid leader dealing with 9/11. I mean, how in the world do you go from that perception, 90% approval just like his dad, after 9/11, rebuilding an economy in 2 recessions, to go to being 30% approval, hated and reviled? You do that by letting your opponents destroy you. You do that by letting the media destroy you and not fighting back and not getting political because you don't want to sully the office or whatever. And the reason I still have some hope here, folks, and I always will have hope. I am never artificially or falsely optimistic. I don't think that the public is being given good choices. The Democrats are going to nominate whoever they're going to nominate, and they're going to be hopelessly leftist. They're going to be right out of the Saul Alinsky playbook. If they go Hillary again, we're going to get this more of what we've got now. Added with the first female president, which means hands off, no criticism. Otherwise, it'll be the war on women and ongoing sexism and what have you. So Republicans will be cowed and afraid to be anywhere critical. And if the Republican Party establishment has no interest in finding or nurturing another conservative leader, which is the only way they're going to really win and have a mandate and revive the country. If they're not going to do that, then we're going to continue to have talks and discussions like this for the rest of our lives. And the subhead of a conversation that we're having now could be called What If? And the Republicans are going to continue to be the what if party if they continue to try to destroy every conservative that has a chance of winning in the primaries, which is what they're setting up to do again. The answer to what's wrong in this country is conservatism. And even now, I've got a story in the stack about reform conservatives who believe we've got to stop talking about tax cuts and we've got to stop talking about a smaller government. I'm sorry, there is no other subject but smaller government right now. The problems that we have are directly related to an out-of-control government and people who want to be in charge of one. There is no solution that includes people from a different party who think they can run a bigger government smarter, which is what seems to be the Republican position. Blue in the face. I am reminding everybody that the blueprint for the solutions to what ails us is right in front of everybody's face. And it involves and it includes winning. And why people don't want to win being conservative is a very, well, it's maddening, frustrating, and all that, but it's also factual, apparently. We have an out-of-control government. We have an out-of-control amount of spending. We have no accountability to anything going on. And the solution is smarter people running it. Isn't that what the Democrats always said about the failure of communism? Well, yes, but the wrong people tried it. We are the right people. Or, well, yes, communism failed, but it's because they didn't spend enough money. We are the smarter people who will do it right. And the smarter people who are going to be doing it right continue to destroy everything they touch. Every 4 years after every 4 years. So somebody explain to me why the Republican alternative is to say the same thing. Well, the American people have spoken, Mr. Limbaugh, and they want a bigger, active, intelligent executive and government. And therefore we, as the smarter, moderate conservative stewards of such a government, can indeed make a difference. How in the world is the solution a continuation of the same? Well, the only difference being that the people in charge are supposedly smarter because they are not Democrats. Doesn't compute.
In times like these.
Well, Rush, you keep talking about Reagan and all of that. But, you know, Reagan, era of Reagan's over so long ago or whatever. You know, the question is, how did Reagan overcome the media? The media hated Reagan as much as they hate Bush. The media hated Reagan as much as they've hated Nixon. The media hated Reagan as much as anybody has ever hated the Republicans. Don't doubt me. For those of you that weren't alive, do not doubt me. Reagan was hated and despised. The players were different. Their names are Sam Donaldson and Dan Blather and so forth. He was just as despised as any media hated Bush or Nixon. And yet you've heard that, but Reagan, he had this charisma. He was able to speak directly to the American people. He was able to go over the heads of the media and speak to the people unfiltered. True, but that's not why Reagan succeeded. It all comes down to the same thing: substance and reality versus spin, PR, buzz, and myth. The end result: look at what happened when Reagan was president. The economy grew like gangbusters. I don't care what the media is saying. The reality was the economy was great. We were vanquishing communist foes, foreign policy. I mean, the point here is the way you overcome the media is with success on the ground. But you don't vie for a buzz success or a PR success. You don't try to have success that's defined by persuading as many people as possible you're successful. You define success by being successful. Implementing policies that work, that really benefited people, because they helped themselves. The reason Reagan was able to overcome the media is because his policies revived the country, which was in as bad a shape in the latter 70s as it is now, which is precisely what we need again. We don't need PR tactics to try to convince the media we're not mean or bad. We don't need tactics to get the media fooled. We just need somebody who is unabashedly and unafraidly conservative, who will implement policies that will work and will bring actual positive results to people's lives. And then it doesn't matter what the media says. They'll look like buffoons, like they did in the 80s. It's just, it's substance over symbolism, reality over buzz. That's all it is.
Somebody has to have the guts to say it.
Because I've been gone for so long. I'm trying to squeeze a whole lot in here. And as such, I am speaking faster. No, my brain is outputting data faster than my oral cavity can keep up. So, I appreciate your patience and tolerance in dealing with it today. It's always this way, first day back after being gone over a week. So much that you want to squeeze in, even in the first segment, you can't do it. But anyway, I want to expand on something I was just making, point I was just making. Great to have you. Telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Substance over spin, substance over reality. Now, I must say, I'm going to acknowledge, I realize how seductive spin is to people. I know how seductive buzz is. I know plenty of people who would be totally satisfied if the buzz was that they were really profoundly successful when they weren't. Because they would think people thought they were, and that's all that would matter. One of the Republicans' big problems right now is that the Democrats define us. Democrats tell us what they're about, and the Democrats tell everybody what we're about. Buzz. We don't have any reality to counter it. We don't have any substance to counter it. So what they say about us sticks. Well, not us, but I mean the Republicans in Washington. What they say about them sticks. There is no substance. There is no... All there is an ongoing battle to win the PR battle, the buzz battle, the spin battle, if you will. It seems like that's all anything is anymore. That substance and reality never matter, and some people think they never have. But I want to reiterate, Ronald Reagan was a hugely successful president by anybody's definition, so much so that the history revisionists began even before he had concluded his first term. But despite what they said, he was hugely successful. He was successful on economic matters, foreign policy grounds. Despite what the media tried and did, the people could see it. The people lived it themselves. And as quaint and as old-fashioned and maybe out of touch as it sounds, I believe that's how you neutralize the media. You institute policies that grow the economy, that limit government, strengthen national security, have things that actually do this. Reagan had to fight like hell for the Republican nomination. He had to fight through the Republican establishment just to have a chance to appear on the ballot. Remember what happened at the Republican convention, Kansas City, in 1976. It was not a cakewalk, is the point. It was an ongoing battle. Republican establishment, then as now, was opposed to Reaganism, conservatism. It was only after he won that they began to be a bunch of hangers-on. And it was near the end of his term. They couldn't wait to get rid of it and resume their normal posture. Now, let me give you two examples. A-B comparison, as I like to say. I have been chronicling on this program for the past year the real, substantive, overwhelming success of Scott Walker in Wisconsin. Scott Walker is a conservative. He is a Reaganite conservative. He has beaten back every liberal attempt to destroy him. How? The media wasn't on his side. He didn't have a PR firm doing his bidding. There were Democrats and media and other leftists trying to intimidate him, threaten him and his family. Today, Wisconsin, I've got the story somewhere here in the stack. It's a profound story. Should have found it during the break. It is a story of how Wisconsin is on the way to becoming red. Now, it isn't. It isn't red, but the dramatic change in Wisconsin is profound, and it's based on substance and based on reality. And yet, and by the way, it is the antithesis. What Scott Walker has done to revive that state, budget surplus, income tax cuts, income tax refunds and rebates, what he has done gets no attention within the Republican Party per se, no attention in the mainstream media. In fact, all the attention in the mainstream media when it comes to Republican governors right now happens to be on Governor Christie, whose state is a mess. Chris Christie, however, remains loved and adored by the drive-by media. In comparison, they're still trying to take him out, I understand, but it is an amazing contrast or comparison. The states of Wisconsin and the states of New Jersey, and a genuine conservative governor who has literally wrested that state from Democrat control. With substance, reality, policies that have indeed changed for the better people's lives. They have how many recall efforts on Scott Walker that have failed? So my question is, how come the media wasn't able to destroy him? Well, it's results. It's exactly right. Why haven't all of the dollars that have been spent to destroy Scott Walker succeeded? Because the reality is he is a hugely successful governor. And he has fixed a lot of things that were broken in that state. And I've said, I don't know how many times, Scott Walker and his governorship ought to be the modern day blueprint for the Republican Party on how to win. How to win in other states, how to win the presidency, and then after they do that, how to fix what's wrong with the country. A conservative triumphing and winning in Wisconsin is huge. That was one of the bluest of blue states. It's home to some of the most fringe left-wing radical movements that there are in this country. And they weren't able to beat Scott Walker, and 2 recall efforts failed miserably. And yet, look where the buzz is. Look where all of the happy talk is. Look where all of the PR is. Look where all the so-called action is. Christie, who went on the Tonight Show, or is going to go on the Tonight Show. Christie, who once spoke to Bruce Springsteen. Take your pick. I mean, throw your own example or story into the mix, and you have the contrast. Now, my point is, you might say, Scott Walker, nobody cares about Scott Walker. Well, the people of Wisconsin know about Scott Walker, and the people living there have elected him and have fought against efforts to recall him. He's had to fight like hell. It has not been easy, but it's the blueprint. And I've been interviewed him for the Limbaugh letter. I've been chronicling this. I have been pointing this out to people. When he survived the most recent recall and when he announced the latest budget, which included tax cuts, a budget surplus, I said this should be the biggest story in the Republican Party today. And it was right before the Republican Governors Convention. And you still, if you didn't hear about it on this program, you didn't hear about it. Now, what's this here? Salon.com. Christie quietly implodes why his big accomplishments, quote unquote, have fallen to pieces. Distracted by Bridgegate, the national press has missed the unraveling of the entire Christie myth. What is the Christie myth? No. That's a policy. No, Christie brought taxes on it. What's the myth? John Kennedy said it best. John Kennedy said the greatest enemy of truth is often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest. No, the biggest, greatest enemy of truth is the myth. Persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. Now, I think it's uncanny that Kennedy said that, given he is the greatest beneficiary of one of the biggest political myths in this nation's history, and that is what? Camelot. There is no lie about the Kennedy administration that is going to ever overcome the myth of the Kennedy administration. So what is the Christie myth? I mean, there is one. The Christie myth is that he's a conservative. Well, the media does. The media still believes that he's a conservative. The media believes he's a conservative Republican. Why is the media hyping him? Because they love him? They're hoping he gets a nomination. They think he's going to be another Northeastern Republican who gets a nomination that can lose. Now, just like we had a caller mere moments ago who made the point that Obama would not have been possible were it not for Bush. That Bush screwed up so bad, that Bush made so many mistakes, that it ended up being so hated and reviled that all Obama had to do was show up and be the first black wanting to be president, and that's all he had to do. And anything else he did was a bonus. He could act like a messiah. He could say, going to fix this. He's going to lower the sea level. He's going to heal the planet. And Bush was so bad that Obama, just by existing, was 1,000% better. Okay? Well, let's fast forward to 2016, and the Democrats and the media are already trying to force the next Alinskyite on us, and that would be Hillary, who is no different than Obama, who will be just like Obama. Her attitudes on things, be it the military, be it foreign policy, be it ambassadors, whatever. She is an Alinskyite. She wrote her thesis at whatever, Wellesley on Alinsky. She is Obama, and Obama is Hillary. They are interchangeable. She's even going to be the first of something, the first woman, if she's elected. Now, the caller said that it was Bush that made Obama possible. Okay. Well, is it going to be Obama that makes Hillary possible? I mean, let's face it. Hillary is going to be seeking the presidency, bouncing not off of a horrible Republican regime, but rather the Obama administration. So we can't say that Obama is going to make Hillary possible, like the caller said that Bush made Obama possible. So what's Hillary going to say in her campaign? Like, Obama could easily say, I'm not Bush, and that's all it took. Because apparently Bush was so hated, so reviled, people were so disgusted that that's all it took, okay? Don't forget, Hillary has previously been vanquished by Obama. The black guy beat the pantsuit. Okay, so now it'll be the pantsuit by herself against who? What? All they can do is try to scare people about who the Republican nominee is going to be. And once there is that nominee, all they can do is run around and scare the hell out of people about what the Republican will do. Well, nobody wants any more of what Obama has brought. Can we agree with that? Nobody wants any more of this job situation. Nobody wants any more of this debt. Nobody. So how does Hillary differentiate herself? And how do they blame the Republicans for this? How does Hillary go out and say, elect me to keep the Obama myth or the Obama legend or Obama whatever alive? Can't. Nobody wants that. So what does Hillary run on? She can't run on I'm not Obama. She can't run on I'm going to fix it, because that's acknowledging that she's part of what broke it. So she's got to run on history. First female. My turn, and it's bring Bill Clinton back to Washington. They think that will be a winner. And you combine that with whatever they're going to say about whoever the Republican nominee is. And if it's Christie, it sets them up even better. So how do we counter that? Well, I don't know. I'm just, substance, reality, conservatism, blueprint of what's worked, blah, blah, it's all there. Well, anyway, I got to take a break here, folks. You sit tight. We will continue right after this. Don't go anywhere. iOS 8 today. Yeah, well, thirdly, I can't believe you. With all that's going on, people don't want to hear about iOS 8 today. Well, maybe some do. I'll do it tomorrow. I promise. The iWatch. I don't know anything about the iWatch. I don't even know that there's going to be an iWatch. See, once again, you are totally believing, speculate, as Apple said there's going to be an iWatch. All right. Has Apple said there's going to be an iOS 8? Yes. Have they said there's going to be an OS 10 Yosemite? Yes. Have they said there's going to be a bigger iPhone 6? No. But, well, yeah, there will be one. They actually have said so in that trial with Samsung, but it was cast in another way. I don't know anything about an iWatch. Other than if it's related to health, I'm not interested. We have a habit, folks. We have a habit of walking out the front door of our houses, keys in hand, getting into cars. Most of us do. Some of us try to find the bus, save the planet, and so forth. But whatever, we lock the door to the house. We unlock the door to the car, and off we go. And we rely on the door locks as our security without even thinking about it. And it works just fine until your home is broken into, or down the street somebody's house is broken into, or worse, yours is broken into. And then we panic. And then we make tracks trying to find a home alarm system after the fact. And that's precisely the moment in which the home security alarm system industry waits for, because they just can't wait for you to sign a 2-year contract. They can't wait for your house. I mean, they're not hoping your house gets burgled, but they know that statistically houses are going to get burgled. They're laying in wait for people who don't buy the alarm system until after they're burgled. And the first thing they hit you with is, well, you got to sign a 2-year contract with us here for services and so forth. And there's a better way than that. It's called Simply Safe. The website is simplysafeusa.com. It's a home security company with a completely different idea. And if you do not have home security right now, this is something you should think about so that you don't become one of these after I was burgled statistics. There is no long-term contract at Simply Safe USA. They don't want you on a long-term contract. They want you to be totally in control of your home security system, from the duration of your contract to the kind of home alarm system that you have. So much so that they send you the alarm components to install yourself so that you know where they are and how it operates. It's all wireless. You don't have to run any wires behind walls. There's no snaking cables. There's no massive connections to point A to point B, positive versus negative. Make sure you don't have the impedance mismatch or whatever. It's all wireless. You just put the sensors on the doors and windows that you want protected, and it's connected wirelessly to your central hub, and that's connected wirelessly to the alarm center, which is also over cell tower. Wi-Fi and cell is basically how this happens. And it is so simple, you can install it yourself, and then you learn how it's done, you learn whether it's reliable, you know where the sensors are. Think about adding a step to the process of securing your home when you walk out the front door the next time. Install a Simply Safe home security system at an incredible price and value. Don't wait to be burgled. Don't wait for somebody in the neighborhood to be burgled. Do this. Be state-of-the-art, have fun putting it in, and be confident that you are protected. Go to simplysafeusa.com. That's the website, has all the details, and a 10% off offer for you in this audience. simplysafeusa.com. You'll find an incredibly well-designed home security system perfect for your home. Washington Post had a story while I was away. Headline, female-named hurricanes kill more than male-named hurricanes. Did you see that while I was gone? You heard it. Okay. Let's take that headline and let's ask ourselves, why in the world might this be? I mean, no, it's true. Why would they assert that this is true, that hurricanes named after women kill more people than hurricanes named after men? Well, here's the answer, and it's rooted in feminazism. You see, people don't take hurricanes as seriously if they have a feminine name, and the consequences are deadly. This is a new, groundbreaking study. Female-named hurricanes have historically killed more people because neither consider them as risky nor take the same precautions. If Hurricane Helen is hitting you, Helen wouldn't hurt me. Helen, are you kidding? But Hurricane Richard, you better look out, because Richard will come and savage you, will destroy you, will do horrible things to you. Helen would never think of hurting you. This is what they want us to believe. Researchers at the University of Illinois and Arizona State University examined 6 decades of hurricane death rates according to gender. The years covered 1950 to 2012, and of the 47 most damaging hurricanes, the female-named hurricanes produced an average of 45 deaths compared to 23 deaths in male-named storms, or almost double the number of fatalities. The difference in death rates between genders was even more pronounced when comparing strongly masculine names versus strongly feminine names. Yes, they said, our models suggest that changing a severe hurricane's name from Charlie to Eloise could nearly triple its death toll. Sharon Shavit, study co-author, professor of marketing, University of Illinois, says the results imply an implicit sexism. I wonder if they factored in the time of the month that the female hurricanes hit. You know, if a female hurricane is, well, in its cycle, it can make it even worse. Well, are they factoring that? Look, you may be laughing in there. That makes as much sense as any of the rest of this. Hurricane Charlie is more threatening than Hurricane Eloise, and so people prepare themselves more for it. And I'm, Hurricane Katrina. What we're assuming is true, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to eliminate female names. That's not the way to look at this, though. The way to look at it is exactly as the headline says: female-named hurricanes are deadlier. Period. Who cares why? Female-named hurricanes are deadlier. That's all we need to know. And I give you Katrina. Period. Here is Jim in Saratoga Springs in New York. Welcome, sir, to the program. Great to have you here. Hi.
Russ, all your points are valid as to why we are in the situation we are right now. I mean, definitely everyone can agree to that. I think what you have to look back to, I mean, I had to modify my train of thought a little bit during the break, but I think because of George Bush Sr., who I deeply respect, we got 8 years of Bill Clinton. You know, we have no new taxes, read my lips. We had, I'm a compassionate conservative. I mean, those two phrases were famous. I mean, why would you even have to define conservatives as compassionate? I mean, that's the first problem. Then we had 8 years of Bill Clinton. We had the 94 sweep for the majority in the House. And then we had Republicans that went squeaky kneed. And then they decided, okay, the media said, okay, Bill Clinton is the greatest man. He's the first black president. But yet they never told the truth that it was because of the Republicans in the House that controlled Bill Clinton's spending that we had a balanced budget. You never hear that from the media. And then after 8 years of Bill Clinton, then we had George W. Bush, which was, you know, I respect deeply, and we had pretty successful years, but then he started spending towards the latter end of his second term. Did he let the media and Karl Rove did not fight back? They did not let the media, they let him get away with murder. They let him define Republicans. They let him get away with all the lies about the Iraq war. None of that was fought back with. And I think the media has had over a dozen years, and not only the media, but Hollywood, academia, to mold the generation that was coming up to say that Republicans are evil, conservatives are evil, there's nothing good about conservatism. They never articulated it. I became a conservative because of Ronald Reagan. I was a college liberal, and he planted the seed for me to become a conservative. And over the years, it's because of people like you and Mark Levin and many others that have enlightened me in how conservatism works. And liberalism is a failure. And I try to tell people all the time that I love, my family, friends, that liberalism is the wrong path for this country. And I show them example after example, and once you show them, and they can't look at the truth and turn their head. They have to look in their mind and say, okay.
Jim, let me interrupt. Let me take you back to the beginning of your call when you cited George H.W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes, and then W with compassion and conservatism. Is your point that those two guys were trying to pass themselves off as conservatives and gave it a bad name and helped the Democrats tar and feather conservatism? Is that your point?
Yes, they did. They kind of like said, well, I'm a little bit embarrassed to be a conservative because they let the media and even some Republicans say, well, we're not really pro-life. We can't be pro-life and be a conservative. Or, they're just the whole thought what you were talking about years ago about how when you had that meeting with some Republican women, they said, you can't bring that up. It's just the whole concept of establishment Republicans.
Oh, yeah. That was Ann Stone. That was a mess. I remember that. That was the Houston Convention in 92. Oh, man, was that... Oh, yes, sirree, Bob. I remember that. Republican Women for Choice or some such thing. Well, Jim, you've got... There's some validity to what you say. Look, it all boils down to he's a Reaganite. Reaganite because it worked. He's not a conservative for conservative's sake. He's a conservative because it works. It worked. It's kind of like abstinence. It does every time it's tried. That is one of the profound, frustrating things.
He didn't start it, but he'll be happy to finish it. Rush on the EI.
With iOS 8 that I am just ecstatic about. And it's the one thing I've hoped would happen. And I'm probably one of 5 people in the country who care about it. But nevertheless, to me, it's amazing. The tech is astounding. It is an adult Christmas for me, and it's already implemented here in the first beta. It's an existing feature that I wished were something this past year that it wasn't, and they've made it exactly what I want it to be. Exactly. So I'll give you details tomorrow. In the meantime, it is estimated that 1/3 of all motor vehicle thefts could potentially translate into identity theft. You know why? Contents of the car. Might be a laptop in there, a smartphone, a driver's license, insurance card, registration, garage door opener. Think about all the stuff's in your car. So you get your car stolen, that's bad enough. But what about what's in it? You could be up the creek without a paddle, unless you have the paddle. And that's LifeLock. Very, very simple. Look, we live in a world where everything about us, bank records are connected, stored everywhere. So some kind of cloud someplace. No matter. Even if you turn location services off on your phone, somebody can still find you. And I'm not telling you that to scare you. It's just the way it is. It's the tech. Somebody can find you, even if you have your phone turned off and location services turned off. And people that know how to find you and your phone or your other data like this, you need to be protected from them, and that's what LifeLock is all about, protecting you from identity theft. They have not even the cops can stop all identity theft. LifeLock comes as close as anybody ever will with LifeLock Ultimate. It helps me, and I know I find out once a month that it works, as you will too. You simply give LifeLock all that data. You give them your social security number, your credit cards, and whatever. And if any of those numbers are stolen and used by others, you find out about it in progress, and you shut it down. And it does work. You don't need to change your life. You just need to help protect yourself with LifeLock Ultimate. Visit lifelock.com/rush or call 800-440-4833. Use the promo code RUSH to save 10% off your LifeLock Ultimate membership. That's 800-440-4833. LifeLock. Do not either do all that stuff and not take any phone calls or the other way around. So, anyway, there's a lot yet to come is the point. And it's only Monday. So thanks for being with us, folks. It's great to be back. As always, thanks for your time, and we'll see you back in 21 hours. Right here. Same place, same time.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. So, who's going to do what? Flashlights?
Nowhere to be found.
Where to be found? Batteries?
Dead.
Great. Emergency supply kits?
Not packed.
No. What about blankets?
We have an old towel.
Good enough. Cell phones?
May not work.
Emergency water?
Not a drop.
And what about food?
Nope.
Perfect. We all know where we're meeting if we're separated, yeah?
The library.
Aunt Joan's house. The bus stop.
Great. And I'll be waiting.